Wait, do I get an ounce of gold?
Do I get an ounce of gold?
I thought that was an ounce of gold.
This is not a political show.
This is
David's bringing us right down the political train.
What else do you want to talk about, Mel?
No, I'm just...
Nothing politics. Let's talk about meditation. Welcome back to another episode of Business Untitled. Excited to be here today. Just want to remind you of our mission. We're trying to drop knowledge, some of the knowledge we've accumulated in our whole lives, to communities that normally don't get this knowledge. It all started with Mel Carter, shout out, who started hanging around Dave and I, and we just couldn't get rid of the guy. And then started bringing friends around our house. And we figured that instead of having all these friends come to our house, let's do a podcast to get to his friends. And so, exciting time. And by the way, we love your support. Like us, send us comments, send us questions, follow us, and tell your friends about us. All right, Mel.
Before we jump into business, did anyone see this Adrian Broner's press conference yesterday? Or was it day before yesterday?
I was working too hard.
It was like, you guys know who Adrian Broner is?
I don't.
Let me give you a quick background on him. He's this super talented boxer from, I think, Cincinnati, Ohio. Don't hold me to that, but I think that's where he's from. He was like on track to be like the next Mayweather. Him and Mayweather was cool. He lost a couple fights, had a couple like, I think he had a porn leaked with him and like some girl. Always got into a lot of shit on the internet. But any which way, he's back. He's talented. Lost a couple fights. He had a press conference yesterday, and you know they get a little like heated at the press conference. He got extra heated, and he had this moment that went viral, and I'm going to try to do my best at remembering what he said. To his opponent, he was like, bro, don't fucking play with me. My niggas come to the podcast, not the podcast, the fights with guns, and they'll shoot you. If you play with me, they will shoot you. I'm already running from murders. I beat murders. They looking for me right now. I was like,
wait, stop.
Wait. I was like, oh. And then he kept going. And then, like, his friend walked over and was trying to calm him down. And then Don King kind of whispered in his ear. And he was like, nah. They'll shoot you in the face. I was like, wait, what? Shout out to Adrian Broner. Hopefully he doesn't mean all that. Even though at the end he said, I'm not lying, but I truly believe he was joking, as he seems like.
What's the interesting question? Like, where did this, like, the hype between MMA fighters or boxers, they all think it was funny because we know a lot of the wrestlers that have switched, and they were like the clean-cut kids, and now they're trying to act like they're tough guys when they're really not, but in order to promote a fight. And so where does promotion get into reality or get into violence? I mean, you got a community that there's so much violence in.
But was that promotion, or was it just like total what do you think about that? God forbid he's serious, but if he is serious, do you think there's a possibility he was serious?
There's a possibility he was serious. I mean, I didn't see the clip, so
I wish we saw the clip. I told us before, and we could actually.
All right, you know what? We'll show the clip.
No, that's fine.
But, not now. I'm talking about when we edit.
Like to Mike's point, it's a line that you walk where, where does the line of, like, I'm really angry, I really want to kill this guy, it's blood sport, versus this is competitive and I'm just psyching myself up. And I think that exists in all sports to some degree, right? There's always trash talking as a part of sports, but this is taking it like to the next degree.
Listen, you can graph the rise of the UFC, the rise of this hostility, within lots of ways, the rise of the lack of civility that we see in American life, American discourse. Get on the internet and you just see this war between left and right, between different factions. That didn't exist when we were young. People got angry, but it was a much more civil discourse.
So wait, when you guys were wrestling, you guys didn't talk shit to the opponent?
Never.
Trash talk's been a part of sports, right, for a long time. I think it's, to your point, it's like as values have declined, there's more, it's worse, right? There's, he's saying like civility, whether you're debating things in the Senate, whether you're in the court, whether you're at a UFC fight, right? Whether
Just
you're
go
the
on
fans,
Twitter or Instagram.
it's all declined, right, over the last 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. Look, you could draw a line to the presidency of JFK and start to think about when the press started to just pick away at right. He was having affairs in the White House, but they kind of kept over here. Then you fast forward to Nixon, Clinton, right, Trump. I don't need to get into that, but I'm saying like it's everything, right, is where the civility and discourse has digressed.
We are not a political show, by the way. I just want to put that out there. We are three normal guys.
In a sense, also blood sport and this has been around for thousands of years at the same point of time, right? Yeah. So it's like, if you look at it like Western civilization, liberalism, right, humanism, in effect, modulated that. So like over like the last 100 years, there was less of that, right, in that way.
It literally just feels to me from when I was a kid, when I was a college wrestler, when I was right out of school to today, the overall anger in society is way up, and it's shown in our sports and it's shown and everywhere you look.
Is it shown in sports though? I agree with you that the overall anger.
And in UFC and in boxing, I mean, like go to the crowd when you go to the Madison Square Garden to watch a UFC fight. Yeah. The crowd is substantially more aggressive and different than when you go to a Knicks game.
Yeah, absolutely, because it's a blood sport.
Fighting.
It's a blood sport, and the Knicks is like.
My point was just the rise of the UFC with the fall of civility. I think you can graph it and they go hand in hand. UFC is the fastest growing sport in the world.
I thought paddle was.
Maybe we should all switch to paddle. Padel.
Dave's been playing padel every day.
Shout out Reserve Paddle on West Side Highway.
Shout out to Michael Carey, who's going to open a private paddle club down here in Tribeca.
Cool too.
It's kind of Michael Carey. I like him. We met randomly in Monaco. We got to get him on the podcast. He's a cool dude.
Yeah, he's got a lot going on.
I got another question for you guys. So I was reading this thing. Saudi Arabia, which, by the way, shout out to Saudi. They invited me over there.
I love to shout out.
They invited me over there.
Shout out jar.
We can have a shout out jar.
The government of Saudi Arabia, the minister of Saudi Arabia of investment, invited Mel Carter over there. I had a great time in the country. It was amazing, and I'm going to go back. I saw something that Saudi Arabia is trying to raise $13 billion by selling a part of Aramco,
Aramco, the Saudi oil company.
And I was just like, isn't Saudi Arabia like one of the richest countries in the world? Like, why would they want to or need to give away or sell any part of their oil? And that's way above my pay grade, so I actually want to know.
Look, it's a complicated question, right? So Saudi's young, average age of Saudi Arabian citizen is 33 years old. Yeah. So it's a young population. MBS has a real vision to take that country from what looked like the Stone Ages 20 years ago to a modern country. And every time you go there, you see it more and more. Yep. It's liberalizing relatively rapidly. Yeah. He's building a tourist industry. He's building all kinds of industries because he knows at one point oil is going to run out. And so in order to keep the beast fed, these huge projects, NEOM, which they just scaled down.
But they scaled that back like
I agree,
tremendously.
But it's still a tremendous amount of money they're investing in their country, in tourism. It's all over the place. Right. You got to raise capital at one point. So he gets money from oil every year that comes to the government. They have a giant portfolio. They invest well. They get money from that. And so you look at, I think they will literally do a giant bond deal this year. They'll actually be borrowing money. And why would you borrow money if you have money? You want to establish yourself in the capital markets. So when you need to borrow money, people are used to your credit. They know your story. Same thing with selling part of Aramco. They're selling a small piece of Aramco. That's a lot of money, $13 billion to then use in other things.
Do you know how much they're selling?
Yeah, they're selling about less than 1% of their company, basically close to 1%. But if you look at that, I think there's a couple of other important points in there, right? Why would they borrow money? Well, also because $1 billion of annual surplus or revenue, right, profit is going to float them, $15 billion of money now, right? So that's the credit markets, right? And it applies to countries just like it applies to private entities, right? The only place it doesn't apply exactly, and why we are so confused about it here in America, is because the dollar is the standard. You can print dollars, right? You have much more manipulation of the currency in a sense. But other countries, when you're Saudi Arabia and your currency is pegged to the dollar and you don't have the same ability to just create money out of thin air, the way Saudi Arabia funds their people, right, funds their country is oil revenues. That is the number one thing, because they have a state-owned oil company, Aramco, which they took public 5 or 6 years ago, or 7 years, whatever it was, 3 years ago, right? And now they're doing a secondary offering on it. So that's one way for them to raise money, whether they're selling 1% of their company or just borrowing a bunch of money and paying it back with some of that cash flow, right? Secondly, Mike's point's right that they're trying to diversify their economy like we would try to diversify, right? If you're all in crypto, all in music, all in real estate, you often look for things to diversify. And so I think that's, both of those things are coming into play right now with
Listen, we will look back in 20 years and we will say, were MBS's dreams follies? Neom, this giant thing in the like he has spent a fortune on, or was he a visionary? Like, I think he's a visionary in just what he's done already, and from women driving and women going to school and opening up the society to foreigners. When I first went to Saudi Arabia, it felt like I went to Mars.
Yeah,
I was like, when my brother first went, he had smuggled he didn't smuggle on purpose. Somebody gave him a bottle of wine in Switzerland. He had it in his bag.
Has the statute of limitations passed on that?
Yeah.
Which brother?
He called me. He called me and he's like, what do I do? And so he poured the wine in the toilet and he hid the bottle under the pillow and between the mattress, because he was that scared. He was the religious police were going to come down and crack on him.
Yeah.
Now you go to Saudi Arabia, it's not that much different than going to Abu Dhabi.
There's no alcohol there yet, technically, but it's liberalized a lot.
But there's alcohol in the private residences. There's alcohol at private hotels. And so I would bet you dimes to donuts that in 5 years there are zones that are, alcohol available.
Yeah.
What is dimes to donuts? Is that like some 1943
dozens
saying?
of donuts, isn't it?
It's an old. I'll bet you a dime.
Shows for young people, bro. Wait, so it has nothing, not to cut you off, I just want to know, so it has nothing to do with like the price of a barrel of oil being low, possibly them running out, or
I think it has
running out?
Does it have nothing to do with it? Probably has nothing. It's not nothing, right? But at the same time, to me, the main driver there is they want to diversify. They want to invest in infrastructure. When you look at NEOM and what that is, that's effectively touristic infrastructure, right? So if you're investing government, what's the purpose of government, right? You're investing back in your people and your population, right?
Yeah.
So that could be defense, but that's not a great use of it's a necessary use often of funds, but it doesn't really build more wealth for the people. It's just necessary to protect the assets.
Yeah.
Bridges, telecom, hotels, roads. These are the things that
allow other people to build businesses on.
Yeah, that allow other people to build businesses on that infrastructure. So when you're looking at NEOM, what he's basically doing is saying, I'm going to invest in creating this piece of land that all these private developers can come in and attract more dollars to Saudi, so that 10 years we look back from here and the economy's not 90% oil, it's 70% oil and 20% real estate. I mean, I'm just making that as an example, but that's the purpose.
Yeah, and so the jury won't decide how this whole experiment works for 10 years. But in 10 years, we'll look back and we'll be like, wow, visionary, or wow, that was dumb.
Yeah.
Not this 1% sale.
Yeah.
That's normal course of business.
Yeah.
I'm talking about how he's investing.
Right.
Let's go.
And I also just want to make the one last point, which is I think it's an interesting place to frame that most countries need to create wealth by economics or mining and extracting minerals, right? Those are like the two main ways that countries create value, right? So that they can exist as a country. So it's different in the United States, but I just want to point that out, that most countries have to operate like private entities.
What makes Dubai?
I was just about to ask about
What makes Dubai
Dubai
so special, and you know, makes the ruler of Dubai maybe one of the most charismatic, best businessmen in history, is they built that megalopolis. Is that a good word? Megalopolis?
Yeah, that's a word.
They built the megalopolis with no oil, no natural gas. They built it on chutzpah, Jewish word. They built it on courage and vision. And I remember I was out there a long time ago, 1994, and I was seeing the plans for, you know, the world where they made the sand islands and the Palm where they made the sand islands. So I was like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever seen. I was like, that's never going to work. And now there's the second Palm, and the Palm is booming at some of the most expensive real estate in the whole Mideast. It worked. I would have never bet on it, and it worked.
Yeah.
And so that economy is foreign money coming in, right? I mean, you could, if you want to be tough about it, you say, well, it's the money laundering capital of the Mideast. It took over from Singapore and Geneva, you know, because there's Persian, Iranian money that comes in, there's Russian money that comes in, there's money from all over the world that's coming in that place, which is also recycling. But now it's got a self-sustaining economy.
Yeah.
And every great restaurant's there, and nightclub is there, and it's booming.
And it also, you know, it's got geographical advantages too, in that you have a lot of growth occurring in Asia, right? If you look at the Indian Ocean basin and the proximity to Asia and all that Asian emerging market growth, Dubai's right there. And so that's a part of it too, right? They happen to be in the right place at the right time with the right concept.
Right. Between Abu Dhabi and Dubai, the amount they're investing in airports for the next 50 years is breathtaking. I was on day one when Hong Kong built the biggest airport in the world. And I remember them saying, we're going to have 33 million passengers a year.
Yeah.
And now they're looking in Dubai at 150.
Dubai had like 53 million visitors last year.
They're building an airport for 150 million people to be able to come through.
Yeah.
Staggering.
Do you know, even to get, right, to tie this into what we just said about Saudi, I mean, Dubai started as an airport and a port. I mean, that's what the first investments were.
Really?
Right? Well, effectively,
Wait,
Dubai
with the vision
was a
of
really
doing this
small,
or no?
Yeah. In other words, you know, what Dubai started effectively, I don't know, 40 years ago, you know, like realistically, 40, 50 years ago. And the first thing that they did was they invested in a really kick-ass airport and a really kick-ass port, right? And then they did something else really smart at some point in time. 40 years ago, they built Burj Al Arab at that time, which was that hotel that looks like a sail right on the beach. And they did a brilliant marketing campaign.
First 7-star hotel in the world.
First 7-star hotel in the world. And those three things came together. It wasn't just a touristic mecca where they had this like cool place you wanted to visit. They also put airport, easy access, and port, let's develop, you know, like a commercial transfer economy off of that. And that's really what started their motion. And then it's just, you know, kind of like rolled
and in
into this
08,
important place.
they looked like they were going bankrupt. And, you know, listen, they're cousins with the guys from Abu Dhabi, and he lent them money very graciously and bailed them out. And I'm sure Dubai won't forget that.
Yeah.
They won't. There's the Burj Khalifa.
Yeah. The Burj Khalifa, that's right. And that was supposed to be called something else
It's
originally.
supposed to be called the Burj Dubai.
That's right. That's right.
All right. Let's move on from the Mideast.
Next thing, I don't know if I'm like the host of this, but
You are the
You're hosting
I
today.
have
You are
a
the host.
ton of questions.
We're getting back to our roots.
Why are we hearing so much about the Indian election? And this might be insane, but they said something like over 900 million people voted. That can't be true, right?
970 million people.
Yeah.
So wait, is India like a small, not a small, is India like a continent controlled by one man?
Well, India's one of the it's the largest democracy in the world, right? So their elections,
Largest country in the world.
largest country by population in the world. Their elections take 7 weeks. They have 6 weeks. They have 7 waves of when you can vote. 970 million people voted. Just finished on June 4th.
Wait, to put that into perspective, can we help people? How many people vote here in the U.S. for elections, and how long it takes?
Less than 100 million people.
I think it's
Right?
like we could Google.
I want to say it's like 40-something million people vote for one and 50 million, you know, somewhere around that.
I thought it was a little
For
higher, but it's in that
presidential.
zone.
Yeah, in the zone of 100
Google
million
it. We should
people.
know.
So, and
Shame
it
on
takes
us.
what, 1 day or 2 days?
One day,
One
but we now
day
have
we
some mail-in, and
Yeah.
you can. But broadly, the bulk of people
That's insane.
Yeah, it's one day.
Yeah. How about this? India hires or uses 2 million security guards
I saw that.
to make sure they have fair elections. Now, this was what's interesting about the Indian election. For the last 8 years, they've got Prime Minister Modi, who is from the BJP party, a Hindu nationalist party. He is conservative. He is a markets guy. So let markets work. India has been booming as an economy. Matter of fact, I must have read 15 papers this year from great investors saying investing in India now is like investing in China in the 1990s. It's going for this 20-year run. It will be the dominant country. They've got English speakers. They've got smart people. They've got all this stuff going for them. And Modi was credited for it. And so a lot of people thought this was going to be a wipeout election. He was going to get, 450 seats in the parliament. And the earthquake that just happened in India is he didn't. He will be a prime minister for a third time, but he'll have a coalition government because the other parties did really well.
Initially.
There was an even right-wing Hindu nationalist guy, kind of a real monk who became a zealot that got a tremendous amount of votes. And broadly, the Indian people said, like you, Modi, don't like you as much. You could almost call it a rejection of him, even though he's got the most, seats. And the old party that had a lot of power, right, the party of Gandhi, and indeed Rahul Gandhi, who now leads the Congress Party. So little history. Rahul Gandhi's great-grandfather was Nehru. The Nehru jacket you wear, that button up here,
Yeah.
that was Nehru, right? He took after Mahatma Gandhi was shot. Nehru was the guy that took, was the first prime minister of India. Granddaughter and Rahul's mom was, Sonia Gandhi. The father was prime minister, Rajiv Gandhi. So he's from a political dynasty, the party that used to rule India, and he's the number 2 now in terms of power. And so it was a real shift. What it means, I think, is the kind of right-wing market-driven forces that were pushing India are going to slow down a little bit.
Yeah.
And we'll see. It'll be very interesting to watch in the next few months.
Yeah, I think it's right. One positive thing out of it is it still demonstrates, right, India's democracy. Right, there was a lot of narrative around
there was
Modi being an autocrat, a dictator, things like that. So it really shows that system still has legitimacy, I think. And I think that for me, it's hard to distinguish from a Western press perspective really, really deeply, like the pluses and minuses and impact of Modi. But clearly, he's done a lot to build India, right? I'm sure there's good, there's bad, but their economy was really struggling for a long time, 20 years ago, 10 years ago. And whether it's coincidental or he's had something to do with it, I think that they've gained a lot of strength in the last few years.
We get frustrated with our bureaucracy in America because bureaucracies are inefficient. They kill productivity. They frustrate the hell out of you. Like, go wait in line to get a license at the DMV.
Yeah.
And India's bureaucracy was 20 times worse.
Yeah.
It's just shocking.
Yeah.
And the amount of corruption in India was unbelievable.
Still.
Right? You had to pay. You got to pay. Always the bribe. Always the bribe. Right. And so Modi did a lot to start changing that.
So that was my next question, right? And it seemed like since Modi been in power, a lot of people have got really rich. I don't know if it's his friends. I don't know if it's wait, let me just finish. Interruption, Jaw. I don't know who it is, but one of the big examples we had was this guy's son who wasn't even his wedding. It was like his pre-wedding or something that he spent like $200 million on. With India still having the majority of people extremely poor and watching all these really, really wealthy people, could that have affected Modi in some way, shape, or form?
That was my first instinct when I read this. I was like, I thought about that wedding and the global press and the opulence and what was spent in the jewelry. And in one moment, you could see that was pride for the country. The other, it's like, what the hell is going on? It's like when Ambani built the most expensive house in the world, right? It was $1 billion house, heliport on it, a tower right next to the slums. And you have to understand India. I've been there 4 or 5 times, and you still don't really understand it, right? There are 33 different states. They're like, it's like you said, it's a continent.
Yeah.
It's got 1.4 billion people, 33 states, lots of languages, lots of cultures. It's a continent ruled in essence for a while by Modi, and now it's going to be Modi's going to be the PM. He'll have less power.
Yeah.
Shocking, but there's a lot of notes. They had a caste system, and it still exists in many places, and so it was completely in their minds normal. If you're in this caste, to look down on the people that are in the sweeper caste and say, well, that's what they're supposed to do. And so it didn't feel to them as bizarre as it would to us to build the nicest house in the world right next to a horrifically terrible slum. And that is changing, but I do think you're onto something. I can't think that was great PR and when you're campaigning.
Yeah, and I also think, going back to that it shows that there's still a democratic process and strength in India. I think that's why people are making a big deal about it, because there was an expectation that Modi was going to run that table, right? It's like where the world narrative's been going.
Right, and then we could flip it to the other half of the world, closer to us, Mexican elections.
Yep.
Everybody expected Claudia Sheinbaum to win.
Yep.
Right, first female president of Mexico, first Jewish president of Mexico. Though I called Mexican friends, and they're like, "We didn't know she was Jewish. Like it wasn't. She didn't campaign as the first Jewish president. No one talked about her as a Jewish president. She was the heir apparent to AMLO. So AMLO is Andres Ortiz Obrador. Andres Lopez Obrador, AMLO, right?
Yeah.
Forgot his middle name. Right. He was so popular and so was there for so long, he got his own nickname. Right? We don't call AMLO. A lot of people thought it was the party. No, that was the guy's name.
Right.
Obrador.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he was actually only there for 6 years, right? He got elected, right, with his own party, Morena, and kind of took out the party that had been ruling Mexico, the PRI, for like 30, 40 years.
So the scary part here for Mexicans and why the markets are down in Mexico is that not only did she win a much bigger majority in the presidential election than people thought. People thought she was going to win, but she won by a lot. That in their Congress, they've got very close, if not, we'll see what the final voting is, to a supermajority, which allows them almost dictatorial powers. And the real risk right now is, and there's another funny thing, Congress sits 1 month before the new president sits. And so he will still be in office for a month with this Congress, which is much more favorable to him. And there's a fear that he's going to change the rules about their Supreme Court and make it much less independent.
Can't she change it back?
Well, that she's on his side.
Oh,
but he would do the dirty work for her. And that's what's got Mexicans really, really scared. They expect her to win. It's interesting. She's from, her parents were from Lithuania. She's a physicist. She's a technocrat, a real technocrat. She's a communist socialist.
Environmentalist.
This is a, because I thought, oh, maybe Israel has a friend there. No. She's a pro-Palestinian, communist, socialist, technocrat. And so that's where Mexico is. It's funny because the Mexican economy, because of all this nearshoring, right, bringing manufacturing from China back to Mexico, the peso's been the strongest currency in the world for the last 18 months, 2 years. The best currency trade you could have done was long the peso.
Did it come off after this election?
Yeah, it came off 3%, or 3%.
Right.
Their stock market came off, and we're going to watch to see.
It's gonna be interesting to see if she's different than her predecessor, AMLO, who was clearly a populist, right? As Mike said, she has this kind of academic, technocratic background, right? And so, and one of the main things she did, she was the mayor of Mexico City. I don't know if you knew that or not.
No, I didn't
And
know
when
that.
she did that, she did a lot to clean up the crime in Mexico City. So it's a little bit of a conundrum because you look at her and you're like, she could be, she could be great in some ways, right? Because she did some really good things in Mexico City from afar is what you can see. Or a lot of things that happened under her predecessor were kind of breaking down democratic institutions, making Mexico more autocratic. So it's going to be
We haven't
interesting.
had that many global female leaders, but they've tended to be less corrupt than their male counterparties. And so let's watch and hope.
Here's another question about the alleged supreme leader party of Mexico. Who's that?
the leadership party in Mexico right now?
The other supreme leading party in
Oh,
Mexico.
the narcos.
The narcos.
Uh-huh.
How does this? Because it's no secret. At times they have just as much power, if not more, than the government.
That's right. I think that's.
Right?
I think that's a big. I think that's a big challenge for Mexico, which is to get their economy and keep strong and keep their system strong. Right. That's the worry with what we just talked about, so that they can start to squeeze the narcos out. Because right now, politically, what they do is they're very strategic. They control the routes. They control the municipalities that go from the southern border to the northern border. They don't bother controlling the whole country. It's like they protect themselves so they can move.
Who's this?
Narcos. The narco infrastructure, basically like make sure there is a highway that they can get from the southern Mexico border to the U.S. border effectively, and they don't care about the like Mexico City. They don't get involved with too much. It's this like string of
There's a cartel
municipalities.
for like every city.
No, it's really interesting. And why Mexico thrives while they have this, big drug, drug dealing, issue, is the narcos kind of stick to their own turf, and you don't go there. Right, so you go to Sinaloa, right? It's not like me and you're going to take a vacation in Sinaloa, though my son decided to back through it.
That was crazy, actually.
But so when you talk to people in Mexico City, they're like, that's not really an issue for us. It's an issue in some towns. It's a horrible issue in some towns.
Yeah,
right.
And there is a bizarre brutality.
Yeah,
I mean, there was last year they interviewed 6 college kids. It was a fake interview. They were trying to recruit people for their gang, and the kids were like, "Dude, we just graduated from college. We don't know how to do it." And they chopped all 6 heads off,
which is
as a signal to the people. I was like, that happened last year, like again in Sinaloa.
Yeah.
But it's really isolated.
Well,
that's what I understand.
Yeah, I will say the 5 most dangerous cities in the world are all in Mexico for homicides.
Really?
Yeah, for homicides. Like, it's right. There's safe cities, and then there's a lot of really, really violent stuff.
Strangely enough, what's number 6, and you could actually look this up?
Memphis.
No,
New Orleans.
probably Trinidad. I was gonna
It's
say.
crazy, right?
Because in the U.S., Memphis, New Orleans, usually back and forth for the most dangerous cities, which is crazy because we go to New Orleans a lot and it doesn't feel that dangerous.
More than Chicago?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Chicago's bigger too, so when the cities tend to get bigger, usually it's more spread out, and you're gonna have less.
Right, I'm sure there's micro neighborhoods that are very dangerous everywhere.
And then we got a whole bit there's a lot of elections. Like South Africa too just had their ruling party, right? Mandela's party thrown out for the first time in 30 years, right? African National Congress. Do you see that?
This is not a political show.
This is a world.
David's bringing us right down the political train.
What else do you want to talk about, Mel?
No, I'm just
Nothing politics. Let's talk about meditation.
Let's talk about Mike firing one of the guys who does production for us. I can't give his name because his belly.
Anybody puts that video of me with a bad-looking belly on again is absolutely fired. You know who I'm talking to.
You didn't really fire him.
You can't do that to a guy. The guy.
You got to get rid of your belly.
It was a bad angle. It was a bad T-shirt. It was a bad
angle.
angle, a bad T-shirt. I had a lot of pasta the night before, some bloating, and it was just. I've gotten more texts and more feedback about that episode, how I looked, than I have in any episode we did.
You should do an episode with your shirt off. And now I could talk shit because I'm down 35 pounds. And you know what, Mike, how I started that journey? Mike called me aside and he's like, Mel, all the kids live and everyone, they're just talking about you with your shirt off. You just look crazy. You got to do something.
You did, and you did. I congratulate you because you plus your friend Ozempic have kicked ass.
Little Ozempic.
But you worked out. Let's give him credit.
I work out every day.
At
one point, he was posting every workout. I was like,
and it was bothering Mike so much. Remember that?
Some of our fans were calling me. Were like, dude,
nobody was calling you.
What's wrong with your friend? He's posting every curl he does.
Every morning. Why you just keep posting these workouts? Like no one wants to see this. It literally 7 in the morning. I would get a text from him about my workouts.
All right, let's have a vote from the audience. Do you think Mel should post every workout video or not?
Not every. It was about 1 out of every 5.
Like exactly.
But I want to dive into why you have such a problem with that.
Yeah, Why did you? Who texts you about that? No one texts you about that.
I can't tell you. Mika Brown. All right, what do we got? What do
you got, Dave?
Well, I got something because, we've been talking about crypto a lot on this podcast because A, I run a crypto company. B, these guys love crypto. Dave has been an early investor. And things are changing, and they're changing for the better. Like all of this politics that we had talked about before, even though Biden came out and vetoed the SAB 121, this accounting bill, and we'd all hoped he wouldn't.
Were you surprised?
It was a 50-50. We tried hard to convince the people in power that he shouldn't do it. And politics are funny. Here's a lesson. Because he had previously said it, a lot of his caucus, a lot of Democrats had voted that way. A bunch of Democrats changed their mind. The president, I think, said, if I change my mind on the veto, I'm going to have stranded all those people with the wrong vote. Right. And so when he vetoed it, he said, well, but I really love crypto now, and we're going to make all kinds of changes to make it better for you guys. So he was like trying to make it a soft veto.
So you think something maybe better and more well-reasoned will come back, actually?
I think that was a political miscalculation, but it was a political calculation. But the winds of change are here, and the market senses it. Bitcoin is 71,000. If it takes out 73,000, it will be at 100,000 by the end of the year, and we'll be like, how did that happen? And you can just tell by the activity levels, the interest levels, and the price action. And so, it's funny. Trading is a really hard job because you can tell the same story over and over. You've got to know when things start shifting, and then you pile in a little bit more, and you got to know if you're wrong. But it feels like one of those times when markets feel good.
Yeah. I mean, you've been through a lot of crypto cycles, obviously, right? Because you've been in it so long. Is it feeling like just generally the momentum, the trading volume, like what feels like around the ecosystem when you look at it and feel it?
So when I first started talking about crypto publicly, 2013 and 14, and I'd get brought onto stages with mostly traditional finance people, and I'd talk about crypto, all the investors in crypto were mom and pops, right? They were individuals. They were cypherpunks. They were libertarians, but they weren't institutions. And I had this phrase, the herd is coming. The herd of institutions are coming. And I was just dead wrong for like 7 years, maybe 8 years. It took so long for the herd to come.
But the herd came.
Well, it's not here yet. It started to come, right? With the ETF and Larry Fink and BlackRock and Invesco was the first easy access for the herd to come. When you get Bank of New York and State Street as custodians, when you get Jefferies and Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley and Citibank in the sales and trading business, in the tokenization business. When you get those institutions, then the herd is fully here. And in some ways, as a guy that runs a business, thank God they're not all here yet because they're really hard to compete with. So us at Galaxy working really hard to build a little bit of moat, more expertise. So when they finally come, they either buy us or we can compete. But they're this much closer. In that last 2 weeks, you can sense it. And that brings in capital. That's when the real capital comes in. And what's really cool about Bitcoin, and there's a lot of cryptocurrencies, but Bitcoin is kind of the bellwether, is that the guys that bought it cheap, the guys that own what called big stacks, they call them. What's your stack? Big bags of Bitcoin are never going to sell them. Hear me loud and clear. This is religion, and they see their net worth. They see their net worth as how many Bitcoin they own, not how many dollars they own. They believe that the dollar system is in its final years. It might be 5 years, 10 years, or 40 years, but it's end of lifing, right? Because of populism, because of all the money that gets spent. And so guys like Michael Saylor, people call him a Chad. I don't think Michael will ever sell his Bitcoin.
How much Bitcoin he has?
Well, his fund controls over 100,000 Bitcoin.
Oh, I think it's over 200,000 now.
Wow.
Might be.
It is. It's like 14, 15 billion.
50, yeah.
200. I think it's like 200,000.
It's like $16 billion. So that's 200,000, right?
Yeah.
So 200,000 Bitcoin. I got that wrong. and he's got a decent stack personally. I don't know what his personal stack is, but I know 5 or 6, super wealthy, early kind of OGs in the space, and they're not selling.
Mm-hmm.
They don't call up when the price goes up and call. They want to understand what's going on.
And you still can't borrow money against Bitcoin, right?
Yeah, you can.
You can now.
We do it. Lots of people do it. Listen,
But it's niche. It's niche. It's not like you can go into
Yes.
JP Morgan and borrow.
yes. And so thank goodness for that. So we have a big business in lending against Bitcoin here at Galaxy. In time, it'll just be another collateral. Another thing we did that was kind of cool is a friend of ours and a client of ours from Hong Kong, a guy named Yat, who was a unbelievable entrepreneur. He's built a huge gaming ecosystem called Animoca. He's also a great musician. He grew up as a classical musician in Austria. He wanted to borrow money from us, and he borrowed some against his Bitcoin. And he said, well, what else can I lend you to borrow more money? He said, I got a Stradivarius. So he has this Stradivarius.
What is that?
Violin.
It's a $9 million violin. This violin specifically was played by Catherine the Great Russian Empress, or maybe not the Great Russian Empress, the Russian Empress. And these instruments are like pieces of art. As they get passed down, their provenance, who played them makes them more valuable. And so if the best violinist in the world uses that violin, the violin gets more valuable. Mm-hmm. And so this is really a $9 million art piece. And we tokenized it and lent him money against it. And so now it sits in custody at a place. There's a token. If someone we want to lend it to someone to play, the token has a smart contract in it that says both we have to agree and he has to agree.
Right.
And so it's not that it can't be lent, but both parties have to agree. And so it was, in some ways, a symbolic thing to do, to say, hey, tokenization is coming. Yep. But the next thing you'll do is you take that token and you'll say, hey, let's cut it into 100 pieces.
Yeah.
Now you want to buy 1/100th of a Stradivarius or 1/1000th of a Stradivarius, and being associated with a beautiful instrument or a piece of art gives people joy. You might tokenize it and say, hey, we're going to only allow the people that own a token in this to vote on who gets to play it. Should Josh Bell get to play it? Should the other great violinists get to play it?
And I was going to say, like, I'm going to draw a distinction, right? Because you don't need tokens to do what he's saying, but it's pretty inefficient to do it without them, right? You could create a document, sell 100 shares in an LLC that just owns a Stradivarius, and write the exact same rules into that. It's just cumbersome, and there's no system or mechanism for trading LLC interests in Stradivariuses, right? In that context, right? So
I'm still laughing that you said cumbersome.
Cumbersome. So the
why is that a funny word?
Think about it.
So anyway,
that's a swear jar.
So in a sense, right, what it's doing is just making an easier to understand, more liquid, kind of better infrastructure around that concept. The concept of investing like that still exists.
And listen, I said this on TV yesterday, tokenization, the next phase of crypto reminded me of bankruptcy. It goes very slowly and then very fast, right? People go bankrupt slowly and then quickly. And I think you're going to see these moves like this. There was another company, Republic Crypto, who's an investor.
Yeah,
they decided they were going to tokenize 10% of an EPL team, an English Premier League team.
Yep.
And they're going to sell those to the fans. That's a great idea. It's a great use of tokens. It's like a piece of equity, right? But they're doing it in token form. And they've got the regulated platform. And so you're going to see lots of little examples, and then in 3 years, it's going to be everywhere. And that's why the banks, the Goldmans, the State Streets, all want to be in this business.
I mean, to be fair, and just I want to contrast this, right? Because you could take 10% of a team. Green Bay Packers is owned by its fans, right? So again, that concept exists, right? You could take 10% of a Premier League team and issue it on a stock market if you wanted to. I mean, right, there's, whether the regulations of this market or that market exactly allow it. So it's just like another mechanism, another infrastructure for distributing and dividing ownership.
You're building new rails for finance to operate on. That's what blockchain and tokens are going to do. Right. And so anyways, it was an exciting week.
Yeah, I got a question. Go ahead.
Can I just ask one thing? Because you said something really interesting, which is like, people care who played the Stradivarius. Catherine the Great, Yo-Yo Ma, whoever it is, right? What? Oh, that's cello, whatever. Okay. But nonetheless, they care about which violinists are playing that,
Yes.
right? And that adds to its value because somebody touched that in a creative way, right? Can you see a world in which NFTs, right, in the context of digital property? So pick whatever you want, but I create a digital piece of art, and then we see that art was once owned by Mel, and then it was owned by 50 Cent, and then it was owned by somebody else. Can you see that same dynamic playing out where someone's like, this NFT was owned by Snoop Dogg, and therefore it's more valuable than a similar one that wasn't?
100%. And it's like, listen, in real art, right? You buy something that hung in a museum or that was in a big show, that's called provenance. Like, what's the provenance of it? It makes it more valuable. Or even, you're playing Fortnite and you've got the golden gun that's you won the whole tournament with. And if some famous esport player won this tournament with this gun and he sells that gun, you're like, dude, I've got that guy's gun, right? Even though it's a fake gun.
Yeah.
And so you will see a transformation of a lot of the same human instincts that we have in the physical world to the digital world over time.
Yeah.
And it'll happen slowly, partly. I say this all the time. The baby boomers are going to start dying out at one point. The first thing that's going to happen, and this is a fascinating piece of data, maybe the one thing that is going to go viral. In the next couple of years, we're going to lose 4 million people a year for 10 straight years from the workforce. These are highly educated, well-paid, wealthy people who are going to leave the workforce to retire, right? 65 to 80, they're going to quit working. And so one of the things that worries me as a macro guy is that's inflationary as hell. And so we've got an immigrant problem where we're taking too many in at once. But man, oh man, in the medium term, we're going to need a lot of immigrants. We're going to need a lot of talented, both high skill and low skill immigrants, because we've got a huge portion of our workforce that's about to retire. And we never had this happen, where you have 4 million jobs, right, a year. And broadly before this whole crisis at the border, we let in 2.5 to 3 million immigrants a year, and that was equilibrium then. So now you're taking away 4 million people. Like, I don't know, we're going to replace them with robots. We're going to replace them.
Well, they're also getting replaced by 18-year-olds coming in, but just not at quite the same rate. So the net delta is not 4 million lost a year.
The net delta is 4 million.
No, it can't be. It can't be. Well, just think through the math of it, though. I'm saying, like, if you're dividing the population of the country by, right, like the amount of people in a subset.
We roughly have 4 million people per
cohort.
age.
That's right, per year. Give or take 500,000 off
Right.
of it or something. So I'm saying, like, what's going on is you're probably losing 4.5 million people that are retiring, and another 3.8 are coming onto the workforce. Right?
We're gonna come back next episode. I don't.
So that would mean we're only losing 200,000?
2 or 3, but no. But the fact he's right in this regard, in that the baby boom has many more people in it than Alpha or whatever whatever the generation after Z is that's coming on into the workforce, right? And so there's more people retiring than are coming into the workforce in the current U.S. population. That's what's going on.
Well, and also, it might be the high skill jobs and
Could be some of that too.
so we'll get let's
So-
maybe we cut this and come back and redo that when we got the data.
So I have 2 questions. Are you going to wear the same clothes?
Wait,
Maybe.
Go on.
Or we wear different clothes. It'll be kind of funny. then our audience will be like, dude, those guys care about us so much. They came back in and recut that when they actually knew it. Because I don't want to be wrong on that, because that's an important differentiation.
So all right, so we can cut this or not, but what I'm telling you is, like, when I look at the cohorts, because I look at it a lot with how many people are moving into the rental market in a given year, and where, for instance, what I'm looking at more is the millennial generation, right? And at the peak of the millennial generation, there's about 4.6, right? Which is they're about 30 years old or 31 years old right now. And it kind of comes off that 4.5, 4.4, 4.4. So I'm going to make an assumption that baby boomer is a little bit smaller than that, because people have died off.
because the population was a lot smaller.
Yeah.
Right.
It was that small? Exactly. So I'm saying, like, I can't see how it could be that far out
your
of whack.
logic makes sense. I just want to go.
And I want to say one other thing, whether we cut it, I'm sorry, because it was on NFTs, and I think there's a big misconception around NFTs that were created by CryptoPunks and Bored Apes, right? Which is that NFTs are these
Thank
silly
God
little,
I didn't buy a Bored Ape.
that NFTs are these like silly little cartoons, right? That, you know, you gamble on in the casino. But when you take the Stradivarius and what we were just talking about, right? Not an NFT, that's a physical asset, but you take digitally created art, right?
Yeah.
And it's one way to look at CryptoPunks, but it's another way to look at Scorsese making a movie as an NFT. Like whoever owns that original, forget about you can get copies. You can get copies of anything in this world. You can get copies of Picasso's, right? All Declarations of Independence or constitutions, but all the value revolves around that humans love to pay for the original creative expression of another human. That's the Stradivarius, right? And its provenance. And so I think it's something where people dismiss NFTs because of the, you know, the cartoonish character around that, and that there's something really fundamentally important in NFTs, that if you're a creator, it allows you to establish ownership, provenance, and a bunch of rights.
I mean, I have 10 CryptoPunks hanging on the wall out there. They've held their value, which is really interesting.
How much are they worth now?
200 grand each.
Wasn't they worth like way more than that at one point?
And some specific CryptoPunks were, but like not the basics.
Yeah, and they've held their value because they're first mover. Everybody knows what they are, right? It's like the Bitcoin of NFTs in a way, you know, in that it's got this brand that if you're gonna go tell 10 people on the street, give me an NFT, they're gonna say CryptoPunk or Bored Ape, probably.
Is there a market for it? Can you sell it right now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh. We have some questions?
Should new grads be thinking about as they're graduating and contemplating their career, right? That's what you want to ask.
What should new grads be?
No, say it's a question for the listener.
We can make it funny. What should new grads be thinking about as they graduate and thinking about their career future?
Right. You see people.
Are we supposed to say that it is? Sorry, but why don't we say it's a listener question? No?
Well, it's a listener
What do you
question.
think?
We've got a question from the listeners.
I hope you guys could keep some of this and make it fucking hilarious, because this is hilarious.
What should new grads be thinking about as they enter the workforce?
So you just ask yourself the question?
Well, I'm
Yeah, he
asking all
always
you
does
guys.
that.
It's
No,
for the Wolfpack.
He always asks himself
I
questions.
think they should be playing Too Rare's next single that's coming out called Congratulations.
Nice. Shout out to Rare.
But no, I from me, look, I didn't go to college, but I do believe you should go to college if you have the chance to. But I also believe that if there's a good opportunity for you to, you know, follow your passion, make some money, you should look into that as well too. Like, I don't think you should overlook that and kind of like, if you have a good opportunity on the table, skip it because you're like, I got to finish 4 years of college. So I think they should really look at everything around them, look if there's great opportunities, and college may be the best opportunity for them. And that's what my advice would be.
I feel like new graduates should take risks, not be so anxious about what the future holds for them, but really just get themselves into like whatever opportunity seems interesting, what they're passionate about, just risk taking. Like when you're young, it's so much easier to take risks than when you get to be older, right? You have more responsibilities, more things holding you back. And I think there's a lot of general anxiety and just nervousness in this, you know, social media probably feeds it even a little bit more that I have to be doing this and I have to be doing that. You don't really have to be doing anything except experiencing life at that point in time.
Put yourself in your uncomfort zone. That's the biggest. And learn. Like your 20s are for learning. And so put yourself in uncomfort, learn, travel. You know, travel is a huge way to learn. You learn empathy. You learn how other people think. You learn that your way of life was just a way of life. It wasn't the way of life. You know, like the first time, if you're from Iowa and you grew up in this little town, you think that's the only way people live.
Yeah.
And you go there, you're like, whoa, it's a whole different way of life. And so I would just say travel, 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 and learn, learn, learn.
Wait, do I get an ounce of gold?
Do I get an ounce of gold?
I thought that was an ounce of gold. Anyways, guys, peace out.